Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank each of you for being here. And I'm glad the students are here too. I hope you're learning a lot. I know I am, because brownfields are important. Brownfields, in fact, we got over 450,000 brownfields here in the United States, and every one of them represents a unique opportunity for us. And I hope that we take those opportunities, and certainly what we're discussing today is important. On this committee, Energy and Commerce, we talk a lot about energy needs. We know that we're going to need more energy in the future, and our growing energy needs. And we also talk about the need for more businesses. So we ought to be looking at brownfields as places where we can grow. My own state of Georgia has over 50 major data centers, and many of the brownfields have the potential to house future data centers, and for good reasons. And a lot of these sites have electrical existing power delivery infrastructure, which is a common challenge for data centers. Mr. Conahan, let me ask you, Connaughton,
perfect.
Connaughton, okay. Connaughton, your company specializes in creating data center related technologies. I've visited many data centers, and they use a lot of energy, a whole lot of energy. Do you feel that brownfields represent an opportunity for building out more data centers in America?
Yeah, I certainly do, and I'll give you the example of my company Nautilus, where we have invented an approach to cool data centers the same way you cool a coal-fired power plant or an industrial processing facility. And that's taking naturally cold water, running through the data center, and returning it unchanged, just a little bit warmer, back to the water body it came from. That's how we do power plants, industrial facilities. It's how we cool ship engines. So imagine all of these old thermal power plants, these old manufacturing centers that already have that intake and discharge infrastructure. It's already been permitted in the past. The regulators know and understand what the dynamics of this are. They tend to be located close, by the way, to water treatment facilities and other big infrastructure, so the workforce is there, and the communities are familiar with and accept that kind of activity. So we could immediately be repurposing these old energy centers and these old manufacturing centers if we were able to deal with permitting. Okay, I went to a site.
So how is permitting holding you up? Tell me that.
So our technology results in a process that does not trigger any environmental controls or regulatory standards. And yet, in building that at a brownfield at the Port of Stockton, right, which is a community that really would benefit from this investment, and even though our state NEPA review, it's called CEQA, our state NEPA review, we got through it in 9 months because we had no impacts. We had no negative impacts. It still took us 3.5 years to get signed off on of the NEPA. We then had to wait.
3.5 years?
Yeah, and then we had to wait to file all our regular environmental permits till that process was done.
Okay.
Because the permitters don't want to get into their work until the NEPA's done. And then for them, remember, we had no environmental things, nothing to regulate. That still took a year for them to agree with us that there was nothing to regulate.
Okay.
And in one case, we still got additional requirements, even though it wasn't required by law. So that's the challenge. That's just one example. There are thousands of them out there.
All right. Well, I want to get to two more things, and one of them, Mr. Miller, he just described an area that I think could help us. These brownfields are in rural areas just as well as urban areas. So this is an example where you could actually use the brownfields in rural areas as well, correct?
Correct. That's what we want to do. We actually, I guess we refer to it as a green room back earlier, we're talking and made sure we traded contact with one another to put focus on this. I mean, yes, rural areas should really be.
You got water supplies, you got everything that you need.
Right.
Good. So this sounds win-win.
One thing that we do lack in some of our rural areas is the power supply for those data centers. But yet again, brownfields are also very attractable to alternative types of energy, whether it's small modular reactors, micro, hydrogen, or any of those other types of forms that you could then, use those for behind the meter power to these data centers.
Okay. All right. The chairman's already warned us about asking questions with little time remaining, but I got to get to this because I represent the coast of Georgia, two major seaports, shipyards. Mr. Conahan, what about the infrastructure? Shipyard, how can we upgrade shipyard infrastructure and the importance of building new classes of vessels, much of which will take place on brownfield sites?
The locations are there. We just need to say yes to building, and we need to extend the opportunity zone law to these infrastructure locations to bring in and leverage, on a 9-to-1 or 20-to-1 basis private sector capital.
Great, great. Good. Well, thank you all very much. This sounds like a win-win situation, something we should all be interested in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll yield back.